Okay, so this is part 2 of my IT band series. So part 1, I talked about background info on the injury and basically everything you need to know about the background of it. So if you didn't watch that, watch it. It just gives you some context. But just a quick review, the IT band originates at the hip. There's 2 muscles that attach to it. Superior fibers of glute max come in, and then your tensor fasciae lata, your TFL. Here, comes down, runs on the side of your leg, and has attachments at the femur, the condyles here, and then into your tibia, into Gerdy's tubercle. So phase 1 is considered the pain dominant stage. So this is where your athlete or your runner or you have pain going downstairs or pain walking. So that's a pain dominant phase, which means things are very irritated and we need to kind of calm this down. So we're going to look to the hip and load those muscles I was just talking about, and then a bit of core stuff just to kind of keep some load on the tissues, the areas that are relevant to the IT band, but not necessarily keeping on aggravating the knee. So I'm going to show you those ones. And then phase 2 is your load dominant stage. That's when you don't have pain walking anymore. You don't have pain going downstairs. You're feeling quite a bit better. And then we can start doing some more like knee related exercises, as well as a good solid return to run program. So in phase 1, like I talked about in my first video, athletes can be keeping their fitness on a treadmill with uphill running, like 3 to 5% incline grade. That puts the minimal amount of strain on the IT band, and it's usually tolerable. So that's a good way to keep your runners running. Okay, so come on over to the wall. So the first thing we're gonna do is an isometric for your TFL and your glute max. So you're gonna lie on the ground next to a wall, and we're going to bring my leg up and back into a little bit of hip extension, and I'm internally rotating my leg. So basically my foot's moving down, and then I'm going to be pushing backward into the wall, so kind of extending my hip. And when I do this, I do feel quite a lot of TFL. If you don't, you need to internally rotate more, and I'm just pushing basically as hard as I can for about 10 seconds, dropping. I'm gonna do a few sets of that. So you kind of want to work up to at least a minute. So you want to do about 6 times 10 seconds, or you can do 3 times 20 seconds. But because you're pushing hard, you can really only push hard for about like 10 seconds with this one. It's very intense. So that's more for your TFL. Next one will be glute max. So we know it's a hip extender and an external rotator. So we're gonna move a little bit away from the wall, up, bit of hip extension, external rotation. I'm gonna be pushing back, pushing. Really feel my glute on that one. Again, it's an isometric, kind of 10-second pushes times about, 6. Try to get up to about a minute on that one. Those are pretty hard. If you want more, or if you've been doing those for a few weeks and you're still in the pain dominant phase and you need a progression, you can do that in a side plank. So you can either do it in a modified side plank, where I'm pushing, pushing back, or a long lever plank. Make sure you rotate down and push back. Good. And then of course you'd switch sides. So those are some really good isometrics to start with, just for the glute max and TFL. If you can tolerate more concentric eccentric, then I really love a hip thrust for your glutes. So you're gonna find your bench, and then you can do your hip thrust here. It's usually pretty okay on the IT band with this one, and getting that glute max. And of course, you can load it. You can load it with a barbell. You can load it with a heavy dumbbell, a kettlebell, it doesn't matter. Of course, you wanna add the load if you can, because this is strength training, so we want load. This is pretty light dumbbell, but it's just what I had right there. Yeah, and then I'm just going up and down. Once you can tolerate it, let's get on a single leg. Everything, if I can, try to get on single leg. That. Hip thrust. Beautiful. Okay, and then the last one, I learned this from Dr. Rich Willie, who's like the researcher with this stuff. He showed me this. It's called the Thomas test, but it's basically a good exercise for the IT band. I don't always give it to people because sometimes it's just too painful sometimes, but I'm just showing it as an option. So you're basically, like, imagine this was the painful leg. I'm trying to hang it off a pretty tall bench, trying to get into some hip extension, so I'm really pushing down towards the floor, and then you can go here too, pushing down, and then slightly pulling back on the knee into a bit of knee flexion, down, 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 knee flexion, and holding as an isometric. So that's a way to get a bit of isometric load into the knee, into the IT band where it inserts, and get that tissue used to that compression again. Because again, this is a compression injury. There's that very sensitive fat pad underneath the distal IT band. That's highly innervated, and that's what's super painful and doesn't tolerate the compression from the overload injury to begin with. So another way to get it tolerating a bit of compression in the early phases is to do this Thomas test, like just as an exercise. And because the IT band has that energy storage and release mechanism to it, we know as well it sort of offsets certain like varus torque in the knee. So kind of going in and out to the side actually loads it quite a lot and is sort of where we go with our phase 3. So phase 3 is all about that energy storage and release, and particularly I'll do a lot of side to side hopping with this one. So usually start with just body weight, no resistance, and you can get your athlete like kind of hopping, landing. Once you can kind of tolerate that, you can kind of do a few where you're going side to side. Next is you can kind of hop up and down. To get that side to side varus torque on the IT band. And then another one I really like, which I don't have a band in here, is a resisted lateral hop. Essentially, you would, those long like loop bands, you'd loop that around yourself to something and then hop back and forth, kind of. It's obviously pulling me that way, and I have to get myself in good positioning like that. So yeah, use like a cable or use those like long loop bands that you can just like tether onto something and then jump side to side. So yeah, that's phase 1, pain dominant, phase 2, load dominant, phase 3, energy storage and release. Whenever the athlete or the runner can go downstairs without pain, walk without pain, then you can start the return to run process outside. And that's like a very specific, very tailored to the individual walk-run program, just to like build that running capacity back up. So, okay, so I hope that was helpful. Just kind of like a quick crash course on IT band. Of course, there's a lot more to things. There's lots of nuance. You want to make it individual to your person and their goals, but that's sort of just a good quick once over my part 1 and part 2 videos of IT band pain. Let me know if you have any questions. If you are struggling, I do work virtually with clients, so you just please reach out to me if you need help with anything. Other than that, thanks for watching. Peace.